Last year, I made a video going over how to fight every class as heavy, and for the most part, it had some good advice. But, I could have made that video a little better. I feel like there was some information missing from the video that I failed to recognize only until after the video itself came out. Plus, a lot of you guys gave some of your own advice in the comments section that helped each of your personal heavy playstyles, and I feel like that information could help some other players too. So because of the lack of certain advice, combined with the fact that this video came out over a year ago, and since my editing has, mostly, improved since then, I feel like it's time for a new heavy guide. So here we go, this is how to fight every class as heavy and win. Again, this time around though, I'll keep these tips and tricks more concise and straight to the point so that you can get right back into playing heavy more effectively much quicker. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, time to lay it on the table. Heavy is large. He's the largest class in the game, and his hitbox is stupid easy to abuse, so it's important to do a couple of things that'll make taking you out a bit more difficult, and to help you more often win 1v1s with any of the 9 classes. The first is to strafe left and right when you're firing your minigun. This is actually pretty useful for any of Heavy's weapons, but because of the minigun's huge movement speed penalty when spun up, you're especially easy to hit when using your bread and butter of damage sources. Strafing back and forth makes oncoming damage much easier to avoid, but if you're trying to avoid especially deadly damage sources like headshots, try crouch spamming every once in a while too. This helps make Sniper's job much more difficult when trying to kill his easiest target. But strafing and crouching can also help you avoid any unnecessary close range damage, or any chip damage that might just put you back on a respawn timer. The second thing you can do to improve your class encounters is to equip the Delocus bar. The extra 50 max health you receive from it can be a nice aid to make you a bit more tanky in one-on-one fights. Also, if you're not the best heavy player and want to improve your skill with him, then this extra health can be a nice safety net to fall back on while you're still working out all the bumps in your gameplay, which is also likely to be when you're the most targeted for oncoming damage. And once you're confident with engaging and coming out on top in 1v1s, you're always free to equip another secondary to gain additional benefits. Overall though, the Delocus bar is a nice secondary for any player of pretty much any skill level, since 50 extra max health is going to be useful in any encounter you find yourself in. Lastly, pre-revving your gun when turning a corner will help you tremendously, since all of Heavy's miniguns require this brief spin-up period before you're ready to shoot. Revving up your minigun before you turn a corner means you're able to cross that area quicker and be ready to shoot whatever might be waiting for you around it. Also, continuously revving your gun up while walking forward is a useful tactic in nearly any situation where you have to cover large parts of the map. This lets you be more proactive in gunfights and keeps you more mobile rather than being revved up the whole time you're walking forward, or revving only the second someone else starts shooting at you, because in either situation, you're much more vulnerable. So in general, strafing and crouch spamming, equipping the Delocus bar, and pre-revving your minigun can make the likelihood of winning a one-on-one fight tip much more in your favor. And if you didn't know this for some reason already, there's a hidden base stat that Heavy has where if you equip an unusual, you have an increased chance of suddenly gaining 150 extra health, so do what you want with that info. Okay, that's enough general tips for the time being. Now, it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of specific class encounters. Depending on the skill level of both you and your opponent, fighting Scout can be either one of the easiest or worst experiences of your life. If the Scout you're fighting isn't the best player, or if their movement just isn't up to par, then you'll have a pretty easy time winning the fight. But if that same Scout also knows how to double jump all around you and easily leave your field of view, you're in for some trouble. That's why fighting Scout is mainly dependent on good tracking skills. Okay, well of course fighting any class is dependent on good tracking skills, but when the class you're up against has the fastest speed in the game and a deadly close range damage source, tracking is going to be one of your most important skills to have down. I'd say that fighting Scout at medium range is the most ideal scenario for you, since he's much easier to track at this distance, while his close range lethality is minimized the further he is from you. If you can, try to force this distance by backing up from a Scout if he's rushing you. But like I mentioned earlier, Scout is much more dangerous to fight at a closer range where even the simplest of double jumps can make him completely disappear from your field of view. And if the Scout is using the Soda Popper or Force of Nature, his damage output will be especially deadly at close range, easily outdamaging you if you're caught off guard. So do your best to track him while he's dancing all around you like the pesky Bostonian housefly the Scout is. Or if nothing I just said is your cup of tea, try using the Natasha. This may give the Scout a hard time outrunning and outmaneuvering you at close range, but don't get mad at me when the entire TF2 community comes and crucifies you for picking up this cursed gun. You have been warned. In general, fighting a soldier head-on as a heavy is typically pretty easy. Soldiers' rockets are slightly weakened at longer to medium ranges and are much easier to dodge, while your minigun remains a constant stream of damage. And at close range, while his rockets are much more deadly, Soldier runs the risk of hurting himself with splash damage while trying to outdamage you. But one thing you really need to be aware of is corner peeking. If you're fighting a soldier in a part of a map that has a lot of indoor areas, Soldier can easily peek in and out of cover or around a corner and blast you away with his rockets. Your primary damage output relies on tracking and shooting enemies in your field of view, but for Soldier, he can still damage you with rockets even when behind cover. So when you find yourself in this situation, I think it's safer to retreat to a more open part of the map, and if the soldier leaves the safety of his cover, that's when it's safe to gun him down again. So typically, apart from potential indoor gunfights, fighting Soldier won't pose too much of a problem. Except if he's using the direct hit. Yeah, this is really gonna be a problem for you as a heavy. The extra damage and faster projectile speed of Soldier's rockets mean that trying to fight him with your minigun will make you a much easier target to hit. You're basically a sitting duck at that point, regardless of what range the soldier engages you. But there is a solution I've found that can actually be pretty helpful. Equipping the shotgun can be a good counter to a deadly direct hit soldier on the enemy team. You do still move a little slower when running around with the shotgun, but nowhere near as slow when using your minigun, meaning you can safely crouch, strafe, and shoot him without severe movement speed penalties. Plus, unlike with the minigun, you can also jump around, throwing off the soldier's aim and making your survivability much higher. I would highly recommend running the Family Business as your shotgun of choice thanks to its higher clip size and firing speed. The damage penalty is pretty negligible thanks to the upsides, and in general, it's the perfect sidearm for dealing with a direct hit soldier right up in your business. If you ask me, Pyro is by far the easiest class to fight against as a heavy, since their damage output pales in comparison to yours. Even if they have a pocket medic, you're more than capable of outdamaging even the best of Pyro players. Whoop, never mind. Range is your absolute best friend against a Pyro. Long and medium ranges force a Pyro to completely omit their flamethrower and become more reliant on shotguns or flare guns, which are mostly outmatched against the minigun. And close range is even easier to abuse since Pyro's damage is completely outmatched by heavies, unless of course you forget to even fire the minigun or open your eyes. Or you know, if they're using this thing. But the one time you need to be extra careful when fighting a Pyro head-on is when they're using the Dragon's Fury. This flamethrower can be especially dangerous with its insane burst damage and increased firing speed on successful hits. If your tracking and positioning aren't up to par, a Pyro can easily take you out in just a few shots if you're not careful. The Dragon's Fury is also made a little bit more dangerous thanks to its extended range, so if you see a Pyro coming at you with one, they can start dealing deadly damage from a further distance, making your minigun slightly weaker. So in a situation like this, be more careful and try to have steady aim. I think the best thing to do against a Dragon's Fury Pyro is to start shooting at them the second they look or start running in your direction. Getting the upper hand by dealing extra damage will make you more suited to win this 1v1. Also, similarly to Scout, getting right up in your face and strafing around you is a common tactic for a Pyro, but is made much more deadly if they have the Dragon's Fury, so making sure you have good tracking and that they don't leave your field of view for more than a split second will help you win the fight. Fighting Demo is pretty similar to fighting Soldier, but Demo can be a bit more dangerous with his two primary means of dealing damage. For one, his grenade launcher can take you out in just a few shots from any range, and his sticky bomb launcher can be a problem with its high clip size and deadly damage, not to mention his ability to peek and outdamage you around corners like Soldier. So the same advice for Soldier applies to fighting a demo as Heavy. Avoid close quarters indoor fights and use the shotgun for extra mobility if the demo has good aim with his pipes or tends to sticky spam. But if you find yourself in a situation where your minigun is already revved up and a demo happens to spot you, look out for two specific unlocks, the lock and load and the quickie bomb launcher. The lock and load's increased projectile speed extends the range of Demo's damage capabilities, making him much more deadly from longer ranges and increasing the likelihood that you'll get hit by a stray pipe or two. But specifically for this unlock, using the Delocus bar can help you out a ton if you're at closer ranges, since that extra max 50 health can let you survive the 3 shots in his clip. This lets you gun him down while he has to reload a 4th pipe or swap to his other weapons, giving you a pretty easy victory. The Quickie Bomb Launcher's increased max damage and both its decreased charge and arm times make his stickies much deadlier, especially at close range. Plus, they can be harder to dodge with the decreased arm time, meaning you have very little room for error when dodging and strafing. So in situations like these, the shotgun will give you much more of a benefit than the Delocus bar, since trading more health for higher mobility and instant damage output helps you mitigate the effectiveness of sticky spamming. So basically, do your best to avoid pipes and splash damage from stickies while gunning him down with your shotgun when necessary, and you should be able to win against your typical demo. Oh yeah, and as for demo night, it's usually not even fair. Shoot at him before or while he's charging at you, and you're gonna win like 99% of the time. Like Scout and Pyro, make sure a demo knight doesn't get too close to you since he can easily deal damage while weaving in and out of your field of view. If you're not careful, he can embarrassingly kill you pretty swiftly. You know, at this point it's probably obvious that lots of this advice overlap between classes, but that's just to be expected at this point. Simple tips for a simple class. Oh yeah, and this weapon scares me. Do not let a demo knight get close to you if he's got the skull cutter. Don't do it. Hey, wanna hear a secret? Heavy versus heavy fights are the most simple and boring fights you can engage in. But they're deceptively simple because even just a few hiccups will make you the loser of any fight against a fellow heavy player. The most important factor of this encounter is whoever fires their gun first. The first heavy to be revved up and ready to shoot is usually the winner of any fight. Because of this, I think the Tomislav is a great minigun to use when you know the enemy team has at least one heavy giving you trouble. The faster spin-up time will help you engage the fight quicker, and the silent rev will help you get a jump on your enemy heavy before they have the chance to mow you down. But it's not just about having the right weapon for the job, you also need the proper skills. Having a basic grasp on tracking is your main asset in a heavy versus heavy fight, since a good heavy will likely strafe and crouch spam when firing at you. And if you're not careful, it can actually become pretty difficult to track him. So you can also do the same by strafing and crouching to make yourself harder to hit too. Alongside tracking, you also need good positioning. Yeah, ironically, the least mobile class needs to have proper positioning when fighting, also the least mobile class. Getting the jump on another heavy, or at the very least having the high ground, will make you more equipped to win a fight against your enemy heavy head-on. But overall, being the first heavy to fire your minigun, strafing and crouching, and gaining higher ground will be the easiest things you can do to make sure you win most of the heavy 1v1s you find yourself in. Battling your typical engineer as a heavy is pretty straightforward, but it's rarely a one-on-one fight. More often than not, you'll find that taking out an engineer in his buildings tends to be more of a team effort. In these cases, heavy is a great form of suppression against a sentry. Your giant ammo pool and base health let you constantly gun down a sentry from just about any distance. And even if you struggle to outdamage the engineer's healing towards his buildings, you're able to at the very least be a distraction, allowing your team the potential to come in and finish off these buildings themselves. But when you find yourself fighting a battle engineer, you're presented with a new type of challenge. You'll have two targets firing on all cylinders at you, a fast building mini-sentry with huge range, and the engineer himself. Focus fire is one of Heavy's biggest weaknesses, but when one of the targets focusing you has auto-aim, this engagement becomes even trickier. So that begs the question, which target do you take out first?
Engineer, always engineer.
If your health allows, I'd suggest killing the engineer before any of his buildings, especially his mini-sentry. A mini sentry is a stationary target with only 100 health and a DPS of 48, while an engineer is a much more dangerous and mobile threat with 150 health and deadly damage options, not to mention his wide variety of buildings that can help his team more easily take you out too. Plus, given your huge hitbox, the engineer can more easily land every shotgun shot, making him a much bigger threat than his mini-sentry. Now, I gotta give a quick mention to the Frontier Justice, since that's gonna be one of your biggest threats as a heavy. Even just 2 quick shots from it will kill you in most close-range instances. To counter this, equipping the Locust Bar might give you just enough extra health to come out on top. In the most ideal scenario, you'd encounter a battle NG just placing his mini down, and thanks to your huge DPS, you would easily outdamage the engineer and take his mini out before your health goes down hardly at all. But that's not always going to be the case. Realistically, it's important to prepare for the worst case scenario when fighting a battle NG is heavy, so typically I'd advise taking out the battle engineer above his mini sentry. Do that and you're almost guaranteed to be the winner in this matchup. If you and an enemy medic find yourselves in a standoff, let me ask you, who do you think's gonna win this fight? That's right, the soldier. Wait, huh? Realistically, if you and a medic are in a one-on-one fight, the winner will almost always be you. Medic's damage is so low that he can't possibly outdamage you at close range. But let me also ask you this, when are you fighting only a medic? Like hardly ever. Unless he's the last one standing in a huge team fight, when you run into a medic, you're running into his whole team too, or at the very least, the person he's healing. So winning against a medic doesn't always have to do with killing him outright, but rather dealing with his healing target or targets first. This is when having near perfect tracking will be the most important, since worst case, the class you're shooting at will have at most 50% extra max health if the medic is using the stock medigun. With this overheal on the enemy, you have less room for error, so keeping your aim steady is the most crucial skill to have down in these fights. One thing that I'll be talking about later is knowing when to back out of a fight, since heavy is a huge target and can easily get overwhelmed by a push. But for now, this is an issue that can easily arise when the person you're shooting at gets Ubered. Stock and Vaccinator Uber charges are respectively impossible and nearly impossible to outdamage, so if you're able to, retreating is the best thing you can do. But if the medic is using the Kritzkrieg, kiss your life goodbye and be sure to put on your favorite song while you're waiting to respawn, just so you don't feel like breaking your monitor. The only medigun you can reasonably outdamage the Uber effect of is the quick fix, but even then, tracking is still very important to perfect, since even the slightest of inaccuracies will let the medic outheal your damage stream. But when the medic's healing target is distracted, or when there's a bunch of players all gathered together, prioritizing and taking out the medic will be your safest bet. Trading a heavy's life for a medic's will always benefit your team the most, since the enemy medic being taken out means the rest of his team will soon follow without a healer. So the way that I would fight medic boils down to 2 scenarios. If a medic and his healing target are right in your face, prioritize the healing target, but if he pops an Uber, do your best to retreat the fight. If a medic's healing target or team is distracted, prioritize the medic and take out the team's most valuable player. Now it's time to talk about the class I'm sure you've all been the most eager about, fighting Sniper. And guess what? You don't. Sniper is far too dangerous to even try and gun down from afar. Face it, you're just not equipped for the job. But there are a couple of solutions to Sniper 1v1s, based on the skill level of the sniper in question. If you feel like the sniper has an average skill level and is giving you just a little bit of trouble, the Locust Bar can be a nice secondary to run, since that extra max health will let you survive 2 quickscope headshots. And if the enemy team has multiple quickscoping snipers, you're even more likely to stay in the fight just a tad longer. Pair this with the Fists of Steel and you're more than ready to tank several quickscope headshots. But if the enemy sniper is really good at the game, like 10,000 hours 3 unusuals good, the Locust Bar tends to be less useful, since a full charge headshot is more likely to be delivered right to your head. That's when you put down the chocolate and pick up your trusty shotgun. Shooting the sniper from afar with your shotgun could give him just a bit of aim punch, making his next shot potentially miss. This is especially useful on maps like Swiftwater, Badwater, and Megaton, where you have large amounts of ground to cover while you're in his sightline. And of course, shotgun and Locust Bar usage can vary from case to case, but in general, I think these are some pretty good guidelines for using each. But choose whichever weapon you think the situation calls for. I will say, if you're playing against a Huntsman sniper, the shotgun is nearly a requirement, since the second you rev up your minigun, you're the easiest target for an arrow right to the forehead. so switching over to the shotgun makes you more mobile and much safer to chip away at him. And of course, it's always a good idea to strafe back and forth, crouch, and jump every so often when in any of these engagements. Anything to help make headshots much more difficult to land for the sniper will just keep you alive longer to help your team out. Last and certainly least is my most despised engagement in the whole game, Heavy versus Spy. And what's funny about it is that Spy's glass cannon roll of a class is ramped up to 11 in these encounters, as long as you don't forget to turn around. Yeah, that's kind of the problem when you fight a Spy as Heavy. Turning around is something so easy to forget about since you're the team's bullet sponge and center of attention most of the time, and because of that, you tend to be focused more on what's in front of you rather than what's behind you. So like my last video, my best piece of advice to minimize the number of times you get backstabbed is to just turn around every once in a while no matter what you're doing. Fighting a class head on? Turn around. Focus firing a sentry nest? Turn around. Checking your backpack mid-game? Just turn around. It might sound crazy to turn around when you're preoccupied on something clearly more important, but trust me, it can save your life in a pinch. Even just a quick glance behind you will immediately set your alarms off if you see a teammate a little too close to your back. A quick bullet stream for a second or two will finish off most spies just like that. Then you're free to get back to the carnage in front of you. Well, okay, I know it's not always going to be that simple. If you choose to turn around and focus fire a spy, the person you were first fighting can just take you out instead while your back is turned. But I personally think it's better to kill the spy instead of the person in front of you. I'd rather take a spy out and have the first player kill me than die to the spy and have killed neither player. As for when to turn around, I have two suggestions. When you're just strolling around the map or getting to the next point, turn around every 10 seconds. This should be just enough time to catch a spy out if one happens to be nearby. When you start to get into a firefight, turn around every 5 seconds. You're a much easier target when focused on another player, so doubling the number of times you turn around might help your survivability. So yeah, when you're playing Heavy, fighting spy is pretty simple in general, but again, don't forget to turn around. And before we finish off the video, I have a few more tips that apply to fighting every class. It's already been made very clear that Heavy is slow, but one additional downside to his slow movement speed is that he has a very difficult time picking fights. Rather, most fights will come to him, whether that be from gunfights naturally gravitating towards you, or from you being the center of attention because of the danger present just by you being on the battlefield. That's why it's important to always be on the lookout for any enemies coming your way and to be aware of when and how fights will start. If you're pushing the payload or capturing a point, you'll be seeing a wave of enemies coming your way. If you're doing exceptionally well and giving the enemy team a lot of trouble, you'll probably see more enemies coming at you more often, so always try to be ready for any fights on the horizon. Also, for some reason, Heavy seems to break the laws of physics and common sense because he fires bullets from his mouth, not the barrel of the minigun. You can utilize this bug to gain additional cover since you don't have to peek out as far to deal damage. Now, this won't always be the most useful tactic in every scenario, but whenever possible, it's nice to reduce your huge hitbox by hiding most of it behind safety. And for the last tip of this video, never be afraid to retreat if you're losing the fight. This isn't as much of an option in a 1v1 since retreating will usually result in the enemy chasing you down while you prolong your inevitable loss. But if you're far enough away from the enemy and they're clearly capable of out-damaging you, retreating is never a bad or impossible option. I know most of this advice involves one-on-one fights, and that's basically the theme of this whole video, but the game is called Team Fortress 2 for a reason. You're almost always facing a whole team, or at the very least, a part of a team, no matter what mode or map you play on, so seeing impending danger and realizing that you're sometimes unable to take them all out is just a part of playing Heavy. So when the going gets tough, don't be worried about getting your hiking shoes on and hightail on out of there. I'd highly recommend using the gloves of running urgently, since even though your max health is slowly drained over time, the speed boost you get from them is more than worth it, especially if they allow you to gain distance from a huge push. Staying alive while being pushed towards a last point is always more useful than dying at the midpoint, so do your team a favor, retreat when the odds are stacked against you, and live to kill the next wave of enemies. Oh, and also use the Fists of Steel if you want some crazy damage resistance in almost any situation. So with all those tips I've gathered from the numerous hours I've poured into playing Heavy myself, as well as the few pieces of advice from other players, I can confidently say that now you know how to fight every class as Heavy and win.
Say that again?
Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope that at the very least you were able to learn a thing or two when it comes to fighting off the other classes in game, and if not, then I hope this was at least an entertaining video to watch during your break at work, or while eating a bowl of cereal at 1:37 in the morning. Also, this video, unsurprisingly, took a while to make, so if you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a like, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see some other cool content I've made. If you guys have any other tips or suggestions as to how you personally deal with 1v1s as heavy, let me know down in the comments. I love reading about the various playstyles of the people watching my video, and I'm sure someone else watching could learn a thing or two from your own in-game experiences. Again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Oh, you know what? I take back everything I just said in the video.